Tom never thought a regular Saturday morning would turn his whole world upside down. He was just a dad trying to do his best, raising two little girls on his own. His older daughter Mia was 10, smart as a whip and way too serious for her age. His younger one, Sophie, was 7 and still believed in magic and fairy tales. 3 years had passed since their mom died in that car accident, and Tom had built a life around routines and safety. Work from home, cook dinner, help with homework, tuck them in, repeat. It wasn't exciting, but it was stable, and that's what his girls needed. That October morning started like any other weekend. The sky was gray and spitting light rain, but Tom had promised the girls they'd go to the farmer's market. Sophie was already buzzing around the kitchen in her pink raincoat, talking nonstop about the apple cider donuts they'd get. Mia was helping her little sister with her boots, being the responsible one like always. Tom watched them and felt that familiar tug in his chest. Mia had grown up too fast. She worried about things no 10-year-old should worry about, whether they had enough money, whether her dad was eating enough, whether Sophie was okay. They headed out around 9, taking their usual shortcut through the wooded path behind their neighborhood. It cut 10 minutes off the walk to the market, and the girls loved looking for squirrels and birds along the way. The path was muddy from the rain, and Sophie kept jumping in puddles despite Tom telling her to watch out for her new boots. Then Sophie stopped dead in her tracks. "Daddy, what's that?" She was pointing toward the creek embankment, where there was a dark heap near the water's edge. At first, Tom thought it was just garbage or maybe some old clothes someone had dumped. But Mia squinted and said something that made his blood run cold. "Is that a person?" Tom's heart started pounding. He told the girls to stay put, but of course they followed right behind him as he carefully made his way down the slope. And there, sprawled on the wet ground, was a man. He looked to be in his 30s, wearing jeans and a torn jacket. His face was covered in cuts and bruises. One arm was bent wrong. His lips had a blue tint that Tom recognized from the CPR class he'd taken years ago. This man was in serious trouble. Tom knelt down and pressed 2 fingers against the man's neck, holding his breath. There it was, a pulse, but it was weak and slow. The man's skin was ice cold. Tom pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man, he's unconscious, badly hurt. We found him by the creek on Maple Trail. He's freezing and his arm looks broken. The dispatcher was calm and professional, asking questions, telling Tom not to move the man. Then she said something that made his stomach drop. "The ambulance is coming from County Hospital. There's been a major accident on the highway. Response time is going to be about 15 to 20 minutes. Tom looked at the man's blue lips, saw how his chest barely moved with each shallow breath. 20 minutes might be too long. The guy was soaking wet from the rain, lying in the cold mud. Hypothermia could kill him before help arrived. "We're 2 blocks from my house," Tom said suddenly. "I can get him there and warm him up until the ambulance comes." The dispatcher started to say something about not moving injured people, but Tom had already made up his mind. "Sometimes you have to make a choice, even if it's not by the book." He looked at Mia. "Sweetie, I need you to run home right now and unlock the front door." "Can you do that?" Mia nodded, her face pale but determined. She grabbed Sophie's hand. "Come on, Soph, we need to help." The girls took off running. Tom carefully positioned himself to support the man under his good arm. "Sir, can you hear me? I'm going to get you help." The man didn't respond. Tom took a breath and started the difficult job of half carrying, half dragging him up the embankment and toward his house. It was the longest 2 blocks of Tom's life. The man was dead weight and Tom's muscles screamed with effort. He kept talking to him the whole way. "Stay with me, buddy. We're almost there. You're going to be okay." He didn't know if any of it was true, but it felt important to say it anyway. By the time they reached the house, Tom was sweating and gasping for air. The girls had the door wide open. Together, he and Mia managed to get the man onto the living room couch. Tom grabbed every blanket they owned and piled them on. Sophie brought the space heater from the bathroom without being asked. That's when the man's eyes fluttered open. Just for a second, but Tom saw them. Bright blue eyes filled with confusion and fear. The man's lips moved, trying to form words, but nothing came out except a whisper Tom couldn't understand. Then his eyes rolled back and he was unconscious again. Tom noticed something that made his skin crawl. There were dark marks around the man's wrists, like bruises in the shape of rope or restraints. This wasn't just someone who'd fallen and gotten hurt. Something bad had happened to him. The ambulance arrived 6 minutes later, sirens wailing. The paramedics worked fast, checking vital signs, getting an IV started, stabilizing the broken arm. Tom stood back with his girls, answering questions from the EMTs. One of them, a woman with kind eyes, examined the man's injuries carefully. She and her partner exchanged a look. "These injuries," she said quietly to Tom. "They're defensive wounds. See the pattern? And these marks on his wrists? Someone did this to him." "What do you mean?" Tom asked, though part of him already knew. "We have to report this to the police. This man was either held against his will or he was in a serious assault. Maybe both." As they loaded the stranger onto a stretcher, Sophie tugged on Tom's sleeve. "Is he going to be okay, Daddy?" "I don't know, honey, but we did everything we could." Mia was quiet, watching the ambulance pull away. Then she asked the question that had been nagging at Tom too. Who hurt him? And why? A police car pulled up just as the ambulance left. A detective got out, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She introduced herself as Detective Walsh and asked Tom to tell her everything. He walked her through it all, from finding the man to bringing him home. "You said he opened his eyes for a moment?" Walsh asked. "Yeah, just briefly. He tried to say something, but I couldn't make it out." "And you noticed the marks on his wrists?" Tom nodded. Walsh wrote something in her notebook, then looked at him seriously. "You did the right thing helping him. That man would have died from exposure if you'd waited. But I need you to understand something. We don't know who this person is or what situation he was running from. He could be a victim, or he could be dangerous himself. Until we know more, I need you to be careful." After Walsh left, Tom sat on the couch with his daughters. Sophie was curled up next to him, unusually quiet. Mia sat on his other side, processing everything in that serious way of hers. "Daddy," Sophie said in a small voice, "I'm glad we found him. Even if it was scary." Tom hugged her close. "Me too, baby." But as the afternoon faded into evening, Tom couldn't stop thinking about those blue eyes filled with fear. Who was this man? What had happened to him? And most importantly, was the danger that hurt him still out there somewhere? He didn't know it yet, but his simple decision to help a stranger would change everything. For him, for his girls, and for the broken man they'd found in the rain. Sometimes life gives you a choice between the safe path and the right path, and they're not always the same thing. Tom had chosen, and now all he could do was wait to see what came next. The hospital called Tom at 8 that evening. The stranger was stable, out of immediate danger, but things were complicated. When Tom arrived the next morning with the girls, he learned just how complicated everything had become. The man they'd rescued was in room 214, hooked up to monitors and IVs. His broken arm was in a cast, his ribs were wrapped, and the bruises on his face had turned dark purple overnight. But he was awake, staring at the ceiling with those intense blue eyes. When Tom knocked softly and entered with Mia and Sophie, the man turned his head slowly, like he wasn't sure if they were real. A doctor intercepted them in the hallway first. "You're the family who found him?" "Yeah, that's us," Tom said. The doctor, whose name tag read Dr. Patterson, pulled Tom aside while the girls waited. "He's going to recover physically. The hypothermia could have killed him, but you got him warm in time. The arm will heal, ribs too. But there's something else." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "He can't tell us who he is. No ID, no wallet, nothing in his pockets. We ran his fingerprints, but he's not in any system. And when we ask him his name, where he's from, anything about himself, he just shakes his head." "Amnesia?" Tom asked. "Possibly. Could be from the head trauma, or it could be psychological. The brain sometimes protects us from memories that are too painful. Given the nature of his injuries, we think he escaped from a very bad situation. Human trafficking, maybe. Or he was being held somewhere against his will. The pattern of bruising, the restraint marks, the way he flinches when anyone approaches too quickly. This man has been through something terrible." Tom felt sick. Who does that to another person? Detective Walsh was in the room when they entered. She'd been trying to get information from the stranger all morning with no luck. When she saw Tom and the girls, she stepped back. "Maybe you'll have better luck," she said. "He won't talk to us." Sophie didn't wait for permission. She walked right up to the hospital bed, her little pink backpack bouncing, and pulled out a piece of paper she'd worked on all night. It was a crayon drawing of their family, stick figures holding hands in front of their house. And at the end of the chain of hands was another stick figure with a big smile. "I made this for you," Sophie said, holding it up. "That's you. You're our new friend." The man's face did something Tom hadn't expected. His jaw tightened, his eyes filled with tears, and one rolled down his cheek. He reached out with his good hand and took the drawing carefully like it was made of glass. His lips moved, forming words. "Thank you." It was barely a whisper, but it was the first thing anyone had heard him say. Mia stepped closer, her voice gentle. "Do you remember your name?" The man closed his eyes, concentrating hard. Finally, he shook his head. "I don't know. I don't know anything." Over the next hour, sitting in that hospital room, Tom learned more about the stranger's condition. He had flashes of memory, brief images that made no sense. Running through woods, the smell of gasoline, someone shouting, but nothing concrete, nothing that told him who he was or where he came from. The hospital staff had been calling him John Doe, but that felt wrong to everyone involved. This man was a person with a real name, a real life, and somehow that had been stolen from him. A social worker named Grace came by before they left. She was a tired-looking woman with kind eyes and too many cases on her desk. She pulled Tom aside in the hallway. "They'll discharge him in 3 or 4 days," she said. "Medically, he'll be stable enough to leave, but he has nowhere to go. No family we can find, no home, no memory of his life. He'll end up in a state facility for people in crisis." Tom had visited one of those places once, years ago, when a friend needed help. They were overcrowded, underfunded, and depressing as hell. The thought of sending this man, who'd already been through so much, to a place like that made Tom's chest tighten. "There has to be another option," Tom said. Grace gave him a sad smile. "In a perfect world, sure. But we don't have enough temporary housing, not enough resources. I have 17 other cases just like his. I do what I can, but..." She didn't need to finish. Tom understood. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the stranger's face when Sophie gave him that drawing. The way he'd whispered thank you like those were the most important words in the world. Tom thought about his own life 3 years ago, right after his wife died. He'd been lost too, moving through the world like a ghost, not sure how to be himself anymore. His sister had helped. His neighbors brought food. The girls' teachers checked in. People had shown up for him when he couldn't show up for himself. Around 2 in the morning, Tom made a decision that his sister would definitely call crazy. His house had a finished basement with a bedroom. They had space. The girls already cared about this guy. And something about seeing someone so completely lost reminded Tom of his own journey through grief. Maybe he could help. Maybe they needed each other. The next day, Tom called Grace. "What if he stayed with us? Temporarily, while he recovers and figures things out." There was a long pause. "Are you serious?" "Yeah, I have room and he needs somewhere safe. The girls like him. It could work." Grace warned him about the risks, the paperwork, the background checks he'd need, the regular visits from social services. Tom said he understood. Then he called Detective Walsh, who was much less enthusiastic. "Tom, you don't know this man. His amnesia could be real or it could be an act. He could be running from the law, not from danger. He could be dangerous himself." "I don't think so," Tom said. "I've seen dangerous. This isn't it. You're making a decision based on gut feeling about a complete stranger." "Maybe, but my gut is telling me he needs help, and I can give it." Walsh sighed. "It's your choice. But I'm keeping this case open, and I'll be checking in regularly. If anything feels off, you call me immediately." Tom talked to Mia and Sophie that night. He believed in being honest with his kids, even about hard things. He explained that the man they'd found needed a place to stay while he got better and remembered who he was. Sophie's response was immediate. "He should stay here. He's our friend." Mia was more cautious, more thoughtful. "What if he's sick for a long time? What if he never remembers?" "Then we'll figure it out as we go," Tom said. "But I think we should try to help him. What do you girls think?" Mia looked at her little sister, then back at her dad. "Mom used to say that being brave means helping people even when it's hard. I think she'd want us to do this." Tom felt his throat get tight. "Yeah, I think she would too." 3 days later, Tom drove to the hospital to pick up their guest. The stranger, who still couldn't remember his name, moved slowly and carefully like he wasn't sure he was allowed to take up space. He'd been given some donated clothes and a pair of sneakers. Everything he owned fit in a plastic hospital bag. On the drive home, Tom tried to make conversation. "The girls are excited you're coming. Sophie's been getting the basement room ready all week." The man just nodded, staring out the window. When they pulled into the driveway, he paused before getting out of the car. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly. Tom thought about it. "Because 3 years ago when my wife died, people showed up for me. They brought food, watched my kids, sat with me when I couldn't stand being alone. They helped me when I couldn't help myself. I guess I'm paying that forward. Inside, Sophie gave him a tour of the basement room, pointing out all the things she'd arranged. Clean sheets on the bed, towels in the bathroom, a lamp on the nightstand. The man looked overwhelmed by all of it. That evening at dinner, something shifted. The stranger was sitting at their table, eating the spaghetti Tom had made, listening to Sophie talk about her day at school. Mia asked him if he liked music. Tom told a bad joke that made everyone groan. And the man, this person with no name and no past, smiled. Just a little, but it was real. Later, as Tom was cleaning up, the man appeared in the kitchen doorway. "I don't know who I am," he said, "but I know I don't deserve this. Your kindness." Tom dried his hands on a towel. "Maybe none of us deserve the hard things that happen, but I think we all deserve the good things that come after. You're safe here. That's what matters right now." The man nodded, something like hope flickering in his eyes. "I'll remember that, even if I can't remember anything else." The first week was awkward in ways Tom hadn't expected. The stranger, who they'd started calling Jay because he needed something to be called, moved through the house like he was afraid to disturb anything. He kept to the basement mostly, only coming up for meals. He'd sit at the table, eat quietly, and disappear again. Tom could tell he was trying to make himself invisible, like if he was small enough and quiet enough, he wouldn't be a burden. But Jay couldn't help being helpful. On the third day, Tom came home from a grocery run to find Jay in the garage, even though he'd been told to rest. He'd reorganized the whole space, hung up tools properly, and was in the middle of fixing Mia's bicycle that had been broken for months. "You didn't have to do that," Tom said. Jay looked up, almost guilty. "I needed to do something. I can't just sit down there. And my hands, they know how to do this. Fix things. Work with tools. It's like my brain doesn't remember, but my hands do." Tom watched him work. Even with one arm in a cast, Jay moved with confidence when he had a wrench in his hand. Within an hour, Mia's bike was running perfectly. When she came home from school and saw it, her face lit up in a way Tom hadn't seen in a while. "You fixed it. Thank you." She actually hugged Jay, which surprised everyone, especially Jay. He stood there frozen for a second before carefully patting her back with his good arm. That night, Tom heard sounds from the basement around 3 in the morning. He found Jay sitting on the floor, back against the wall, breathing hard. He'd clearly been having a nightmare. "Sorry," Jay said quickly. "I didn't mean to wake you." Tom sat down next to him on the cold basement floor. "Want to talk about it?" "I can't remember the details. Just feelings, fear, running, hands grabbing at me." Jay pressed his palms against his eyes. "I hate this. Not knowing who I am or what happened. It's like living in fog." They sat in silence for a while. Then Tom started talking about his wife, about the months after she died when everything felt wrong and impossible. "I'd wake up and forget for just a second. Then I'd remember. And it was like losing her all over again every single morning. I felt lost in my own life." "How did you get through it?" Jay asked. "The girls mostly. I had to keep going for them. And time, I guess. Not that time heals everything like people say, but it makes things more manageable. You learn to carry it better." Tom looked at Jay. "You're not alone in being lost. That's what I'm trying to say." Jay nodded slowly. "Thank you for this. For everything." The next morning, Sophie had a plan. She announced at breakfast that Jay needed to learn things again, even if his memory didn't come back. So she started asking him questions. Simple ones. "What's your favorite color? Do you like pizza? Can you swim?" Most of the time, Jay didn't know the answers, so Sophie would say, "Well, let's figure it out." She made him try different foods to see what he liked. She showed him her favorite movies. She taught him a card game and discovered he was really good at it. Mia joined in too, but in her own quiet way. She'd sit next to him while doing homework. And when she got stuck on math problems, Jay would lean over and explain concepts in ways that made perfect sense. His face would light up when he did it. "I think I might have been a teacher," Jay said one afternoon. "Or maybe an engineer. This stuff comes naturally." "You're good at explaining things," Mia agreed. "Better than my actual teacher." Slowly, Jay started coming out of his shell. He joined them for movie night, sitting carefully on the end of the couch. He helped Tom cook dinner, discovering he knew his way around a kitchen. He even laughed at Tom's terrible dad jokes, which Sophie claimed was proof he was a good person. One evening, about 2 weeks in, they were all in the living room. Sophie had fallen asleep during the movie, her head resting against Jay's shoulder. Tom saw the look on Jay's face, this mixture of wonder and terror, like he couldn't believe he was allowed to be part of this moment, but was also afraid to trust it. "She trusts you," Tom said quietly. Jay looked down at Sophie's sleeping face. "I don't deserve this. Any of it. I could be anyone. I could have done terrible things. You really believe that?" "I don't know what to believe." "Then believe what's right in front of you. You fixed my daughter's bike. You help around the house. You're patient with the girls. You have nightmares about running and being hurt, not about hurting others. Those things tell me who you are, even if you can't remember." Jay was quiet for a long moment. "I'm afraid," he finally admitted. "What if my memory comes back and I don't like who I am? What if there's a reason I can't remember? Then we'll deal with it together," Tom said simply. But Jay's memories were starting to come back in pieces. One afternoon while working in the garden, he suddenly froze, staring at his hands. "I remember something," he said, his voice shaking. "My hands were tied. Zip ties, they hurt. I was in the back of a van. It smelled like chemicals. There were other people, but I couldn't see their faces." Tom immediately called Detective Walsh. She came over that evening and listened carefully as Jay described the fragment of memory. She wrote everything down, her expression serious. "This matches the pattern we've been seeing," Walsh said. "There's been a string of kidnappings over the past year. Men with technical skills being taken and forced to work for criminal operations. Mechanics, engineers, IT specialists, they keep them drugged and compliant, move them between locations." "What happens to them?" Tom asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "Most are never found. The ones we do find usually can't tell us anything useful. You might be the first person to escape and survive, Jay." Jay's face had gone pale. "The others. The people in my memory. What happened to them?" Walsh hesitated. "We don't know. But if you can remember more details, locations, faces, anything, it could help us find them." Over the next few days, more memories surfaced. Jay remembered being grabbed outside an apartment building at night. He remembered being drugged, the feeling of being unable to move or speak. He remembered working on cars, modifying them, but his hands shaking so badly from withdrawal that he could barely hold tools. And he remembered escaping, running through the woods in the dark, hands still bound, falling down an embankment, hitting his head. The cold water of the creek, thinking he was going to die there. "That's where you found me," he said to Tom and the girls. "I remembered trying to get up, but I couldn't. Everything was spinning. Then I heard Sophie's voice saying, 'Daddy, he's hurt.' I thought I was hallucinating." Sophie grabbed his hand. "We're glad we found you." But the biggest memory came back late one night. Tom heard a crash from the basement and ran down to find Jay standing in the middle of the room, breathing hard. "I remember my name," he said. "It's Ryan Mitchell. I'm from Chicago. I'm a mechanical engineer. I was 32 years old when they took me." He looked at Tom with tears streaming down his face. "I remember." Detective Walsh ran Ryan's name through the system. Sure enough, there was a missing person report filed 6 months ago. Ryan Mitchell, mechanical engineer, disappeared from outside his apartment building. No family, parents deceased, no siblings. His employer had reported him missing, but the case had gone cold. "You're one of the lucky ones," Walsh told him. "Most people in your situation don't make it out." But Ryan didn't feel lucky. He felt angry and scared and guilty about the others who were still trapped. And he felt something else too, something that scared him more than the memories. He was starting to care about this family, this life with Tom and Mia and Sophie. He was starting to feel like he belonged here. And that felt dangerous because he knew it couldn't last. Nothing good ever lasted, did it? Tom could see the conflict on Ryan's face. That night after the girls were asleep, they sat in the kitchen drinking coffee. "What happens now?" Ryan asked. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to help the police find those people, the ones I remember, but another part of me is terrified. What if the people who took me come looking? What if I brought danger to your family?" It was a valid fear. Tom had been thinking the same thing. But he also knew that running from fear wasn't the answer. "We'll figure it out," he said. "One day at a time." The next morning, Detective Walsh called with news that changed everything. They'd been tracking the criminal organization that they believed had taken Ryan, and they had evidence that the organization was looking for him. Someone had been asking questions around the hospital, around Tom's neighborhood. "You need to be careful," Walsh warned. "These people don't leave loose ends." Tom looked at Ryan at the fear in his eyes and made a decision. Then we'll be ready. Tom started taking precautions the next day. New locks on all the doors, a security camera for the front porch. He had a long talk with the principal at the girls' school, making sure they knew to only release Mia and Sophie to him or the 2 emergency contacts on file. He didn't want to scare the girls, but he needed them to understand that they had to be careful. Is Ryan in trouble? Mia asked one evening. She was too smart to fool. Tom chose his words carefully. The people who hurt him might be looking for him. So we're just being extra safe, okay? If anyone you don't know tries to talk to you, you tell a teacher right away. Sophie's eyes got big. Are the bad guys coming here? No, sweetie. We're just being careful, that's all. But Tom could tell Ryan felt guilty about it. He'd offered to leave several times, said he didn't want to put the family at risk. Each time Tom told him the same thing. We're not giving up on you. We're in this together. Detective Walsh arranged for a patrol car to drive by the house a few times each night. The FBI got involved too, since they'd been tracking this criminal organization across state lines. Ryan spent hours with them trying to remember every detail, faces, locations, the layout of the warehouses where they'd kept him. Every scrap of information could help them find the others who were still trapped. One of the FBI agents, a serious woman named Chen, laid it out clearly. These people are dangerous. They've killed before to protect their operation. The fact that you escaped makes you both a threat and a witness. They'll be looking for you. Ryan's hand shook as she spoke. Tom noticed he'd started having more nightmares again. The threat became real on a Tuesday afternoon. Tom was working in his home office when he happened to glance at the security camera feed on his computer. A black SUV was parked down the street, engine running. It had been there for over an hour. He watched as a man got out, looked at the house, then got back in. The vehicle stayed another 30 minutes before driving away. Tom called Detective Walsh immediately. She told him to send her the footage and said she'd increase patrols in the area. Don't panic, but don't let your guard down either. The next day, the same SUV was back. And the day after that, someone was watching them and they weren't being subtle about it. Tom started walking the girls to and from school instead of letting them go with their friends. He made sure Ryan stayed inside, away from the windows. Then things got worse. The school called Tom in the middle of the afternoon. Mia was in the principal's office, upset. A man had approached her at recess, asked if she had any new friends at home, if anyone was staying with them. Mia had done exactly what Tom taught her, and immediately told her teacher, who got the principal, who called security. But the man had walked away before anyone could stop him. Tom picked up both girls early that day. Mia was trying to be brave, but he could see she was scared. Sophie clung to his hand the whole walk home. I'm sorry, Ryan said when they got back. This is my fault. I should leave. And go where? Tom asked. They're looking for you. At least here we can protect you. But that night, Tom lay awake wondering if he'd made the right choice. Was he putting his daughters in danger? What if something happened to them because he'd decided to help a stranger? The FBI offered Ryan a way out. Witness protection. He could enter the program, testify against the organization, and disappear into a new identity. It was the safest option, but it meant leaving immediately. No goodbyes, no coming back. Tom found Ryan in the basement, staring at the wall. Walsh told you about the offer? Ryan nodded. I should take it. It's the smart thing to do. But I don't want to. Ryan's voice cracked. I know I've only been here a few weeks. I know I barely remember who I am. But this place, you and the girls, it's the first time I've felt like a person again. Not a victim. Not a ghost. A person. Tom sat down next to him. There might be another way. The FBI thinks they're close to making arrests. If you can give them enough information, if they can take down the whole operation, you won't need to disappear. You could stay. How long would that take? I don't know. Weeks, maybe months. And it's risky. You'd have to go into a safe house during the investigation, give depositions, prepare for trial. Ryan was quiet for a long time. If I do that, could I come back here after? Would that even be possible? I don't see why not. The girls would want you to. I'd want you to. Hope flickered across Ryan's face, followed quickly by fear. What if something goes wrong? What if they come after you while I'm gone? Then we'll deal with it. We're tougher than we look. They decided to talk to the girls about it. Tom believed in being honest, even when the truth was hard. That evening, he sat them down in the living room. Ryan sat across from them, nervous. Tom explained that Ryan needed to go somewhere safe for a while to help the police catch the bad people who'd hurt him. That it might take a few weeks, but he'd come back when it was safe. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "You're leaving?" Ryan knelt down in front of her. "Not forever. I promise I'm coming back. Your dad saved my life, Sophie. You all did. I'm not going to lose this family." Mia, always the thoughtful one, asked the hard question. "What happens to us while you're gone? Are we safe?" Tom pulled her close. "We're going to be very careful. The police will keep checking on us, and we'll stick together, just like always. Promise you'll come back," Sophie said to Ryan, her voice small. "I promise," Ryan said. "I've never had anything worth coming back to before, but I do now." The FBI arranged for Ryan to enter a safe house the following Monday. The weekend before he left felt both normal and wrong at the same time. They had movie night. Tom made Ryan's favorite dinner, which they discovered was lasagna. The girls made him a card covered in drawings and glitter. On Sunday night, Ryan couldn't sleep. Tom found him sitting on the back porch at midnight staring at the stars. "Having second thoughts?" Tom asked. "Terrified thoughts," Ryan admitted. "What if I can't help them? What if I remember wrong and people get hurt? What if the bad guys find me before the FBI can protect me?" "You're doing the right thing. Not just for yourself, but for all the others who are still trapped." "I know, but I keep thinking about what could go wrong." Tom sat down next to him. 3 years ago when my wife died, I was so scared of everything. Scared I'd mess up the girls. Scared I'd forget her. Scared of being alone. Fear is normal, but you can't let it stop you from doing what matters. How did you get past it? I'm still working on it. But having people around helps. Letting them in, even when it's scary. Like we let you in. Ryan smiled slightly. "Best decision you ever made?"
"Jury's still out," Tom joked.
Then more seriously, "Actually, yeah. It's been good for all of us. The girls are happier. I'm less isolated. You gave us something to focus on besides missing someone we lost." The FBI came to pick up Ryan early Monday morning. He hugged both girls, holding on maybe a little too long. Mia whispered something to him that Tom couldn't hear, and Ryan nodded seriously, like she'd asked him to make a solemn promise. As the car pulled away, Sophie waved until it disappeared around the corner. "He's coming back, right, Daddy?" He said he would, and I believe him. But that night, Tom's phone buzzed with a message from Detective Walsh. It was a photo from a traffic camera taken just an hour ago, the black SUV that had been watching their house. And this time, there were 3 of them. The men inside were armed. Tom's blood ran cold as he read Walsh's message. "They know Ryan's gone, and they're coming for you." Tom stared at the message on his phone, his heart racing. 3 SUVs, armed men, coming for them because Ryan had escaped and now they wanted to send a message. He looked at his daughters sleeping peacefully upstairs and felt a surge of protective anger so strong it surprised him. He called Detective Walsh immediately. She answered on the first ring. "I'm 10 minutes away," she said before he could speak. "FBI is coordinating with local police. Do not leave the house. Get the girls somewhere safe inside." Tom hung up and ran upstairs. He woke Mia gently, keeping his voice calm even though his hands were shaking. "Sweetie, I need you and Sophie to do something for me. Remember that closet in my room? The one with the special lock?" After his wife died, Tom had turned her walk-in closet into a safe room. It seemed paranoid at the time, but his therapist had said it helped him feel some control when everything felt chaotic. He'd installed a reinforced lock, stocked it with water and snacks, put in a phone charger. He never thought he'd actually need it. Mia's eyes went wide. "Are the bad guys here?" "They might be coming. But the police are coming too. I need you to take Sophie to that closet and lock the door. Don't come out until you hear me say your mom's full name 3 times. Can you do that?" Mia nodded, suddenly very grown up. She woke Sophie, who was confused and scared. Tom hugged them both tight. "I love you, girls. Everything's going to be okay." He gave Mia his backup phone, the one on a different carrier that he kept charged for emergencies. "If anything happens, if you hear anything bad, you call 911. Then you call Aunt Rachel. Understand?" "What's going to happen to you?" Sophie asked, tears in her eyes. "I'm going to keep you safe. That's my job. Now go." He watched them disappear into the closet, heard the lock click. Then he went downstairs and looked at what he had, not much. His wife's old aluminum baseball bat from her college days, a heavy flashlight, and determination. Then he heard a vehicle door slam outside. He looked at the security camera feed. 3 black SUVs parked right in front of his house.
6 men got out and they weren't trying to hide what they were doing.
One of them had a scar across his eyebrow. He looked directly at the camera and smiled. Tom's phone was in his hand to call Walsh again when the lights went out. Complete darkness. They'd cut the power. Then his phone died. No signal. They were jamming it somehow. Fear turned to cold clarity. The girls were safe in that closet. But Tom was alone in the dark with dangerous men breaking into his house. He gripped the bat and moved to a position where he could see the back door through the kitchen window. Then he heard it. The sound of glass breaking. They were coming in. But before Tom could move, he heard something else. A voice he knew. "Tom, where are you?" "Ryan." He appeared in the kitchen doorway, slightly out of breath. "FBI safe house wasn't that safe. I convinced them to let me come back when they realized the target shifted to you." "You shouldn't be here," Tom said. "Yeah. Well, you shouldn't have saved my life in the first place, but here we are." Ryan picked up a heavy wrench from the toolkit Tom kept in the kitchen. "These guys want me. We give them a fight." There was no more time to argue. The back door burst open and 2 men entered. Tom could barely see them in the darkness, but he heard their footsteps. Heavy boots on his kitchen floor. "Give us Mitchell and nobody gets hurt," a voice called out. The one with the scar. "Not happening," Tom shouted back. What happened next was chaos. Tom had never been in a fight in his life, not a real one. But when one of the men came at him, bat connected with shoulder. Ryan moved in the darkness like he'd done this before. Maybe during his time in the military before he became an engineer. They fought desperately, not with skill but with determination. Tom got knocked down, pain exploding in his ribs. Ryan pulled him up. They backed toward the stairs, trying to keep the men away from where the girls were hiding. Then Tom heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Sirens. Lots of them. The men heard it too. "Pull back," Scarface ordered. But Ryan wasn't letting them leave. He tackled the nearest one and they crashed into the dining table. Tom grabbed another, holding on even though his body screamed in pain. They just needed to hold these guys for a few more seconds. The front door burst open. "Police, get on the ground!" Detective Walsh rushed in with a team of officers. The house flooded with light from their flashlights and tactical gear. The fight ended as quickly as it started. All 6 men were on the ground in handcuffs within minutes. Tom slumped against the wall, breathing hard. Ryan sat next to him, blood running from a cut above his eye. "You okay?" Ryan asked. "Better than them," Tom managed to say. Walsh knelt down in front of them. "Ambulance is on the way, and we need your statements." "The girls," Tom said urgently. "They're upstairs." "Safe room." Walsh sent an officer up. Tom called out his wife's full name 3 times and finally heard the lock click. Mia appeared with Sophie, both pale and shaking. They ran to Tom, who pulled them close despite his bruised ribs. "Is it over?" Mia asked. "It's over," Detective Walsh confirmed. "We got them all. And with what happened here tonight, plus Ryan's testimony, we have enough to take down their entire operation. It's done." At the hospital, doctors checked everyone over. Tom had 2 cracked ribs and lots of bruises. Ryan needed stitches. The girls were physically fine but shaken. They all sat together in the emergency room, exhausted and overwhelmed. "You came back," Sophie said to Ryan, holding his hand. "I promised, didn't I?" Over the next few weeks, the full story came out. The FBI had been closing in on the trafficking ring for months. Ryan's testimony and identification of locations led to 17 other victims being rescued. The men who ran the operation were arrested. It made national news. Tom's house was repaired. New windows, new locks, a better security system. But it felt different now. Not because of the break-in, but because something had shifted in their little family. Ryan officially moved out of the basement and into the guest room. Not as a temporary thing, but as a real member of the household. He found a job with a local engineering firm that let him work remotely. He paid rent, helped with bills, drove the girls to school. 3 months after the attack, they were all having dinner together when Sophie asked the question they'd been dancing around. "Ryan, are you staying forever?" Ryan looked at Tom, uncertain. Tom smiled. "I think that's up to him." "This is my home," Ryan said simply. "If you'll have me." "We already decided your family," Mia said matter-of-factly. "We voted on it. It was unanimous," Tom laughed. "Since when do we vote on family?" "Since now," Sophie declared. 6 months after they'd found Ryan in the rain, they took a walk along that same wooded path. The girls ran ahead, laughing and chasing each other. Tom and Ryan walked slower, talking about normal things. Work, groceries, whether they should get a dog. When they reached the spot where Ryan had collapsed, they stopped. Someone had placed a small pile of stones there, probably kids from the neighborhood who'd heard the story. "Hard to believe it was right here," Ryan said. "You were dying," Tom reminded him. "Blue lips hypothermia. Another 10 minutes and we would have been too late." "Sophie saved me," her voice calling out. I remember hearing her say, "Daddy, he's hurt," and thinking maybe I wasn't alone anymore. They stood there for a moment, both thinking about how randomly life can change. How one decision to help a stranger can reshape everything. "Thank you," Ryan said, "for saving my life. For everything after. For making me part of your family." Tom shook his head. "You saved us too. Maybe not in the same way, but you did. After losing their mom, the girls needed to remember that good things can still happen. That people can be trusted. You gave them that." Back at the house, they took a new family photo. All 4 of them together, smiling at the camera. Tom placed it on the mantel next to the old photo of him and his wife and the girls. That night, tucking Sophie into bed, she said something that made Tom's heart full. "Daddy, are you happy?" "Yeah, baby." "I am, are you?" "Uh-huh. I like our family now. It's bigger." Tom kissed her forehead. "Me too." In the hallway, he found Mia waiting for him. "Dad, I need to tell you something." "What's up, sweetie?" "That day we found Ryan, I was scared. But I'm glad we helped him." Mom would have done the same thing. Tom pulled her into a hug. "Yeah, she would have. She always believed in helping people, even when it was hard." "Is it okay that we're happy again, even though Mom's not here?" Tom's throat got tight. "Your mom would want us to be happy. She'd want us to keep living, keep loving people, keep being brave enough to let others in. That's the best way to honor her." Downstairs, Ryan was cleaning up the kitchen. Tom joined him, and they worked in comfortable silence. This strange, unexpected family they'd built together. Not traditional, not what anyone would have predicted, but real and strong and full of love. Tom thought about that rainy morning when Sophie had pointed at a stranger in the mud. How he'd made a choice to help, even though it was risky and complicated. How that choice had led to all of this. Sometimes the best things in life come from the moments when you choose compassion over caution. When you open your door and your heart to someone who needs it. Tom's family had been broken by loss, and Ryan had been broken by trauma. But somehow together they'd helped each other heal, and that was worth everything.